Good morning, Westeros.
And welcome to our Morning Throners podcast.
I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kyle.
And we are your Morning Throners.
And welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We are your Morning Throners with the drowned man on deck. Gentlemen, how we doing?
Kingsmoot.
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 They didn't say that enough during the,
Yeah.
Like, they should have been chanting that on the way in. That's my only comment on this chapter.
Yeah, the whole time. And just
I don't know. They do the weird clacking thing that was kind of cool.
Yeah, with two shells, right?
no, it was
Driftwood
sticks, I think.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I said I'm doing better than last week. I think this one was more happened in this one, so it's a little unfair to compare the two. But yeah, this was more the meat of it than the Victorian one was just a lot of them talking and people.
Yeah,
whereas
we got
this
some
one
action.
actually kind of got some hype here.
Were you disappointed that the Kingsmoot was kind of just like a shouting match and there wasn't like... I feel like we kind of talked about it like, oh, could it be a battle? Could it be a 1v1? Could it be like some type of like physical obstacle course or something?
I didn't think it was gonna be a fight for what that's worth. So something that happened in the Victorian one was they were talking about a chalice though. So I don't know,
His
or a
chest.
cup.
The chess.
Newt,
yeah.
you're in charge of my chess.
No, he said something about a cup too. We'll see who's holding the cup or something like that.
I don't remember, but
I think.
I don't recall. Maybe the chair, sitting on the chair.
Shit. Well, now I'd have to find it. So
Yeah.
I
I don't recall a chalice.
it's hard to have that argument if I don't even know what he said exactly.
Either way, I'm just a little. I don't know. Maybe I'm not mad, but like obviously there's a lot of hype around Damp Hair, and he brings it in really great. I think like the introductory speech is awesome, but then like the Drowned God really ain't in it. Like if we're being fair, it's what the people wanted more so.
Well-
The popular vote won, not the Drowned God vote.
That's
Unless
true.
you're saying that the Drowned God vote, like Damp Hair didn't get any say, like as the Drowned guy.
That's true. He didn't have like any extra authority. Like his vote didn't count for 10 or something. It also wasn't like you kind of were alluding to, Jeff. Could it be a democratic thing? It kind of is, but it's kind of not. Like they're not.
It's just a
counting
hype
votes.
fest.
They're-
Yeah.
It's like a pep rally popularity contest.
Well, yeah, I mean that's why it was important to stay till the end because the last bite tastes the best, right? Or whatever the word
like,
was.
Literally, the last person to go wins every Kingsmoot. Because as soon as the king is chosen,
Well,
the Kingsmoot's over, right?
It's not true.
So-
You just need to be close to the end. And like if someone and like if you get really hype around you and then like you spoke up and they were like, nah, fuck that guy. Like they could go back to being like the second to last guy. But like you
Sure.
can't be too far from the end.
Yeah.
So he said what's his name? Damp Hair says to him, he says, the waves will speak. As he turned away, listen to the waves, brother. He's talking to Victorian. He says, But then anyway, he says, if the cup should pass to me, I will not set it by. So I don't know what that meant. I guess.
I think that just means like
gotcha.
if you're handed the drink, you'll
You'll drink
cup,
it.
you'll drink it.
Yeah. I gotcha.
Okay, so he would take the opportunities.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
it's more of a
Not a literal experience. Okay, I was expecting something with like a
drink,
chalice,
just
and
chugging, just a chug off
salt water.
Salt water.
Well, I mean that's so. Yeah, we didn't even get into the actual like the happenings of this chapter yet, right? So it starts with him like crawling out of the ocean.
Yep.
cold as
Damp
hell.
Hair.
Yep.
Yeah.
Pretty much picking up right where the last one went off. He ran away from Euron in the last Victorian chapter, and then
He's
it's
like,
like
fuck this dude.
and apparently he just ran to the ocean and stayed there till he couldn't feel his body anymore. That's kind of how he handled that.
I mean, it seems that seems his status like that's his typical way of handling things, right?
Yeah, go to the
It's
ocean.
kind of what he says. He's like, I had to go pray for hours.
The one thing I wanted to say to Jeff's point before we get into it is like, is it a popularity contest or is it Drowned God? Well, when Aaron goes up and like prepares, or he like starts praying overnight, he prays for the Drowned God to give everyone who's come the wisdom to see the true king, right? So it's like, I think it's one of those both, right? He's prayed for the God to give the people the wisdom to pick Victorian.
Well, if you
The other thing is
believe,
he's so biased.
right. If you believe in the gods, right? The gods have their finger on everything.
Yeah.
So I was kind of joking, like maybe I wasn't joking, like a wave should have crashed and like a name should have been. I wasn't
There's
meaning
like
like
a
a
message in
name
a
was going to be
bottle.
written in the sand,
Yeah.
or that like Damp. You would think that Damp Hair would have a voice after he introduced the Kingsmoot. He really just kind of chilled.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah, so I agree, and I thought somebody was gonna get drowned, Jeff, to that degree, right? Like that would have been bringing the Drowned God into it, right? If he took these like the 3 or 5 contenders and you just fucking drown them all, and then whoever comes back is the king
without
right?
CPR. What if you did it without CPR? Who could actually cough up the
I think the best way they could do this is if it was like a contest spread out. So like day one, every contestant has to go out on a skiff, and they come back, and whoever has the least weight in fish, you're out. Day number 2 is whatever, and there's like a tournament each day and like different Ironborn customs until the last one where it's 1v1, and they just play the finger dance. And losing a finger doesn't lose it for you. You can keep going if you want, but like you kind of got to tap out eventually if you lost enough.
You only
fingers.
got 10. You got 10 lives.
So,
maybe you're coming into the fight with 2 down already.
exactly. That's how I would do the King's Move to be badass.
Nelson just made it a reality show.
Exactly. Yes. Survivor
All
King's
right,
Move.
let's jump into it. So Aaron jumps out of the water. He's cold as hell, and he's like, you know what? I shouldn't have ran away from you, Ron. I don't need to be that scared boy anymore. I'm a drowned man now.
Yep. One interesting quote along those lines that I think is a little more interesting once you've actually finished the chapter is he thinks, no mortal man could frighten him, no more than the darkness could, nor the bones of his soul, the gray and grisly bones of his soul, the sound of a door opening, the scream of a rusted iron hinge. So he's listing all the things that can't scare him. I think that's important because the very last quote of the chapter after it all wins, right, ends with a rusted
Scream of,
yeah.
1,000
voices shouted out his brother's name. All he could hear was the scream of a rusted iron hinge. So who knows what the fuck that means, huh?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems like maybe to do with getting locked away is the way it sounded to me, but I don't.
Gotcha. He did get locked away. That's where he learned to piss in Lannisport, right? He got captured. And that's when he kind of was reborn again. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. All right. So he ran into a drunk guy. A guy just kind of going out to take a pee. He blessed him, right?
You say drunk guy?
I thought he was like an actual intoxicated guy.
He says
no, it's just a drowned.
He said one of his drowned men. So I'm guessing it's probably not drunk. He's probably, again, I don't know. Maybe the drowned guys drink, but I'm guessing they're more religious, like Aaron drinking seawater. He was just going to take a piss or something. But yeah, he runs into him, blesses it. he runs into him. The dude doesn't ask for a blessing. Aaron just like pours seawater over his head and then walks on. Like anytime you run into Aaron, you're
sometimes
getting water.
You gotta
poured
get some
on
wet. Yeah, you need some holy water. And then he starts climbing up this hill, right? And we get kind of the history of Naga, which maybe it answers our question from last
100%.
time.
Yeah. I'm going to spoil it a little bit. On second thought, I was thinking maybe it was never mentioned that Naga was a dragon, sea dragon, until I might have said that. So a little spoilery maybe, but we were close enough.
I'm going to say, until I see the face of this thing, it did say that the jaw was the throne.
So it's a long quote, but what do you guys read this quote? Sorry, on the crown of the hill. Kyle, you hit it.
On the crown of the hill, 44 monstrous stone ribs rose from the earth like the trunks of great pale trees. The sight made Aaron's heart beat faster. Naga had been the first sea dragon, the mightiest ever to rise from the waves. She fed on krakens and leviathans and drowned whole islands in her wrath. Yet the Grey King had slain her, and the drowned god had changed her bones to stone so that the men might never cease to wonder at the courage of the first of kings. Naga's ribs became the beams and pillars of his long hall, just as her jaws became his throne. For 1,000 years and 7 he reigned here, Aaron recalled. Here he took his mermaid wife and planned his wars against the storm god. From here he ruled both stone and salt, wearing robes of woven seaweed and a tall pale crown made from Naga's teeth. So I don't know, Jeff. I know it says that her jaws became the throne, but it still feels like, it's like a kind of some of that old symbolism of like, oh, over there is the dragon's back, and over here is the head and the eye. You can see the eye in the mountain here, like stuff like that. That's kind of how I read it.
It sounds a little folklory to me. Still.
Yeah, I mean, the dude reigned for 1,007 years, so there's definitely like some. I mean, who knows? Maybe the Bible says people used to live to be 900. So, but who knows? It seems like there's some exaggeration here, but also like we do have these giant pillars, so. Who knows what that is?
I just thought that meant just the Grey King, like as a title.
Oh,
like,
okay.
The King of King's Landing had sat at that throne for however many years. Like,
that's fair.
You wouldn't. I just thought that meant the title sat there for 107, but
that's fair.
Maybe it's just one Grey King. I don't know.
I don't know
the history at all.
Because
me either.
Because things like this do sound a little far fetched, but like if we didn't have people at the wall. And we heard a story about a dude who built a 700-foot wall from the East Coast to the West Coast, we'd be like, okay, but is this an exaggeration? Like, did that really happen?
Yeah.
But we have a guy there. So and that's what I'm saying. They're, like, to Jeff's point, the skull's not still here. I think the quote basically says, like, so much time has passed that the skull went away to dust or whatever. And all that's left is these ribs now. But ribs is more than nothing. So But again,
Yeah, but it's stones.
stone ribs. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
Does
I think it's,
bone
like I
even
said,
turn to stone? I don't know. I got to get a chemistry lesson on that.
Bone turned to stone. I would think it does the opposite. It like probably becomes more
Disintegrates.
porous.
Calcifies.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So, but back in the day, the spot Naga's
Fossilizes.
hill
That's the word I'm
was a
looking
pretty
for.
cool deal, right? Beautiful. They had some tapestries. Like the Gray King had a nice little throne room to himself here. But over the years, a lot of stuff was either lost or stolen, washed away, maybe in storms and whatnot. But now it's just kind of bare bone ruins.
And the one thing he says here, actually, which does remind me, like, this feels like a line straight out of the Bible. Men were smaller now; their lives had grown short. So that could be like contrary to that he lived 1,000 years. Aaron's kind of saying like, oh, like it's right after he says like all this stuff washed away. They had all this fancy stuff, like Jeff was saying. But he said, but even the men are smaller now, and our lives are shorter. So I don't know. Interesting. This is one of the things that I don't know how impactful it is on the current story, but like as a huge mega Game of Thrones fan, like the cool lore stories like this, I want to know more about. So,
well, sure. I mean, you want any book that can come out about any history. I bet if there was a history book on each kingdom, you would take it.
I mean, I wasn't the biggest fan of Fire and Blood. I care more about what's going on in here and now than the
yeah,
history
but you
books.
still geek out over it though. Like you might say, like maybe it's not the coolest read, but then when your mind starts thinking, like then you have fun.
Yeah, I think I read for characters, and the reason I like Fire and Blood is because even though it's not a very character focused, when you reread this book, there's more connections, right? So it makes some of the character moments in this one hit even harder.
It gives you some basis and some context for some of those other stories.
Yeah.
So.
But in general, I'm not enjoying myself when I'm reading Fire and Blood. I'll be straight up about that. It feels more like homework to make it better the next time I read Game of Thrones than anything. But that's not for everybody.
I won't be reading that for sure. So you mentioned this. He took a swig, prayed all night for the men to know who the true king is and to vote that way.
Swig of seawater.
Yeah. And, well, obviously that's all he drinks.
Yeah.
And then he didn't sleep that night. When the god was in him, he didn't need any sleep.
Don't need sleep.
Fucking Ocean. Ocean doesn't sleep, Jeff.
Sleep is a learned habit. I'm on his side. We don't need to sleep.
I like how, he keeps saying that to himself. Like, the water doesn't falter. Like, yeah, no shit, man. It's not a person, though.
It's not a bad thing to try
moving.
and
Emulate yourself.
Yeah. Some aspects, I guess. But yeah, so morning comes, light starts hitting the world. He notices a bunch of banners. You know, I like the list of houses. We got the Silverfish of House Botley, the Bloody Moon of House Winch, the Dark Green Trees of House Orkwood, the Warhorn of House Goodbrother of Hammerhorn, the Leviathan of House Volmark, the Scythes of, doesn't say it, but we know this one.
Say that again.
The Scythes. Scythe?
Is that Roderick the Readers?
Yes, Harlaw. There's like a bunch of different variations on this one for like cousins and shit, but they're all scythes. And there's a lot of krakens. Yep. This is funny too. All the salt wives and thralls are getting ready and like getting food and stuff ready for the captains who are waking up. And the captains, as they wake up, are immediately yelling for
beer
ale.
right away. Yeah.
And Aaron, the priest, is like, okay, yeah, good shit. Drink deep, men. We got the God's work to do today. Like that is not what a Catholic priest would be saying if he saw his congregation swigging their flask before they're coming in. He's not thinking drink deep.
Different
man.
time. I don't know. Different. Well, I don't know. The Catholic might be a bad thing because you're supposed to fast before you get the offering. So
yeah. It feels very iron-born old way. Like, let's get fucking hammered before we make the most important decision of the entire country. I love it. So, basically, the drowned men come up to him. They're like, "Is it time?" And he's like, "Yeah." And this is where they all start clacking their clacky sticks together. They walk out through the people, and Aaron, the way he describes it, like the clacking grows. Other random people start clacking shit together. People start banging drums. It just spreads.
It sounds crazy, right?
Yeah.
Got to join in on the clap. If you're walking with and you're not clapping, like, are you that excited about the King's Moot?
Well, like we were saying at the beginning, we didn't get the King's Moot, but this is like their version of it. Is this clacking?
I'll use like a different analogy just because I don't want to be too Eagles heavy on everything. But like, if you're a Vikings fan and you're at the game and you're not skull clapping, like, are you actually there?
I can't do that as a Packers
fan. Go
ahead.
Let it rip.
I can't.
Yeah, you can.
All right. Intro to the King's Moot.
Well, before that, I think he just like looks out. Does he see Victarion? And he's like, "How can they not vote for this guy?"
Yeah. So everybody comes up. All the children, women, and common men are in the back, and all the captains and kings are in the front. Aaron points out a few: cheerful Siegfried Stonetree, Andric the Unsmiling, who's the only one mentioned that's bigger than Victarion. This guy must be fucking massive. The knights are Harris Harlaw, Lord Baelor Blacktide. That's the guy who was bitching to Victarion last time about how he doesn't want war anymore because his dad's dead. The Stonehouse, who was wearing steel skin compared to the Blacktide, who was wearing a sable cloak. Again, I think this is interesting because Blacktide, again, was like, no war, let's be peaceful, which doesn't feel very Ironborn to me. And he's wearing a sable cloak. And then he's next to the Stonehouse. We don't hear anything about this guy, but he's wearing a seal skin. So I just think it's a personal. I think it's
what a name, right? The Stonehouse.
And I looked this up. I was like, because normally I don't like to put nicknames as their name. I'll put the nickname on their note, but I won't put it as their like linked name in my notes.
Gotcha.
But so I looked it up to see what this guy's real name was. We don't know. So all we know is he goes by the Stonehouse.
Probably because his house is made of stone.
Or he's got some big boobies.
Or he's just fucking massive.
He's a brick house. She's
I don't know if that just speaks
She's
to the,
letting it all hang out.
Is that just the top half though?
I thought brick house meant bustuous. Kyle, that song's more your time.
I don't know.
I'm just going like thick. I think it's
more
just,
my time. That's from like the 70s.
If brick house was ever a slang for bustuous, it was definitely more when you were a kid than when we were a kid. I mean, it's like a 5-year difference. But
I thought it meant like
I just
like,
think it's a thick person.
Oh, it's basically
thick,
like thick.
yeah.
Okay,
Both halves. I'm saying
maybe then he's just a thick boy.
maybe. All right. So great opening speech. Dampere was ready. He prayed on this speech. This is like the best coach giving the pregame speech. He was ready. He got the table set. Pretty much the history of Balon, right? I didn't take too many notes on exactly what he said, but the life of Balon to get us to this point right here. Who's taking that seat? And I was about ready to throw my name in the hat.
Yep, just nothing crazy. What does dead may never die? Balon's in the old God's watery halls now. He honored the old way. He paid the iron price, and now a new Iron King shall rise again, because he's doing like the whole what is dead may never die. So even though Balon's dead, we're gonna get a new Iron King type thing.
Well, before you go past it, he does call Balon a few things here. Balon the Brave, Balon the Blessed, and he's the twice crowned. Is that because after he got freed?
I think it's because he tried to rebel and Robert smashed him.
Yeah.
So he crowned himself and it didn't work out. And then he crowned himself again.
Yeah.
For the War of the Five Kings. So it's like not really a good thing. Like you shouldn't have to be twice crowned. That means that the first time didn't work out. Right? But
fair. Yeah.
Well, sometimes
Good
you
point.
lose. Yeah, you can't win every game.
Well, then they talk about later that, I guess it's a sea battle. They never lost. So as I say, they talk about how they never lost, but it's a sea battles.
So then we get the first, basically he's like, who wants to do it? No one goes, like Jeff
Silence.
said earlier. Yeah, silence. Like, silence gets
This
sprinkled.
is where you got to be. And the word silence sprinkled in there.
Yeah.
You got to keep that on the front of your brain there, Kyle. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. The boat.
This is where you got to be good with like, the best teachers in your life were able to sit in that awkward silence where like, all right, who's got thoughts on so-and-so homework? And then like nobody wrote, the best teachers can just chill.
I think a better example is like I watch a lot of like crime YouTube videos, and anytime they're interrogating somebody, if you ask somebody a question and they don't answer, that's the strategy. It's just like, don't ask another question. Just like sit there, and it gets awkwarder and awkwarder, and eventually they'll just answer because it feels too awkward. They'll literally like confess to shit because
people like to fill silence.
Exactly. Yeah.
Let them talk.
Fucking crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he has to ask again, and eventually this guy, I think this guy probably knows he doesn't have too much of a shot. Gilbert Farwind, first candidate.
Gilbert King. Gilbert King.
I like that I forgot a lot of the details of this. I like that each of them had champions. I like that they needed to have like an offering to the people.
Like bribery's literally built into this election system.
A little bit of bribery. It goes a long way for sure. I like the champions more so than anything.
Yeah,
I
the
get like your
champions are
running
cool.
mates was a cool little deal.
There's one really stupid line later that has to do with the champions, but we'll get to it when we get to it. So Jeff, what's the deal with Farwind?
Farwind.
He's a weirdo.
He farts a lot.
No, he was a weirdo.
He wants to go west. He's like, let's leave here, build a bunch of shit.
We're gonna outrun the sunset. Like he says some weird shit.
So he's from the west is the first thing, and Aaron's like, even us Ironborn think this family's weird as shit.
He's the furthest west of the Iron Islands, right?
8 days sail west. There's an island 8 days sail west of all the big main islands. It's a small one that says only small enough for really like one house to be on, not like a single house.
There's like a rock,
family.
A house per rock type of thing.
Yeah, and I don't think they mean house like a home. They mean like a family, right? Like a Westerosi house. But yeah, and they're also weird because they say these guys can like there's talks that they can like skin change into fish and stuff, like I guess like walruses and sea lions and even whales. Like, I never even thought about that. If you could skin change into an animal, being able to skin change into like a sea animal would be pretty freaking cool.
So you got eaten by another sea animal.
It would just be so different.
They're the strange cousins from the West. That's all, you know?
What does that mean?
It's just the thing. Like everybody's got weird cousins from out west. It's like an old trope.
Like porn in the woods?
Well, it's like Cousin Eddie, right? Like fucking, like you got a weird cousin from out west. Like, yeah, like everybody's got one.
A Christmas Vacation? Is that the guy that comes in the RV?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's one of them, but yeah, exactly.
Oh, I didn't know if his name was actually Cousin Eddie.
Yeah, Cousin Eddie. Yeah, that's him. Yeah, so exactly. So it's kind of that too, right? Like they're just like really disconnected from everything else, and he's out here talking about, like I said, outsailing the sun, and like we're gonna live forever, and everybody will be king. Like he's saying some weird stuff, right? Like unattainable things.
Basically, just promising paradise is.
I mean, just probably something that like nobody really cares for. Like, if anything, they want to go east and like control more. And this dude's like, no, let's run away and see what's out there. We don't even know.
Well, it's not even run away. It's like paradise is over the horizon out there.
Like,
is what he's trying to say.
He thinks we don't even know if the
that's what I'm saying. He's crazy.
Spins. Yeah.
Well, but what if he just like skin changed into a whale and swam over there, and there was a fucking paradise? Like, if this guy can skin change,
Nelson,
just say might have been might have been a good option. All right,
Stupid option.
His champions were his sons. We don't want to even get names. Aaron just says they look like him, so he's assuming sons. And what were in like his offerings was a bunch of like seal skins, walrus tusks, and rings made of whalebone. So we're starting pretty skimpy.
I thought the one cool note here was that Dampere actually thought he was a trap from the storm god. Did you write that down at all?
He mentions the storm god a lot. Basically anything that he doesn't like is happening. He's like the storm god.
He's like, oh, he wants us all to sail out west. That the storm god's just waiting for us out there.
I didn't note that. That is interesting. He thinks a bit a lot when basically anytime Euron does something and starts like getting approval, he's like storm god. So
yeah.
Well, yeah, it's obvious that he's kind of twisting his vision of or his connection to the drowned god to what he wants, right?
Well, so I think let's stop there. I think this is a really interesting point. What does Aaron want here?
Victarion.
Exactly. Like, he doesn't want like the king's moot, right? So like
that's not true. I think he has an opinion, but he's letting the old way have its way.
If we go back to the last Aaron chapter, the prophet, right? Basically, he learns Balon's dead, and this is immediately a problem for him. Because
he knows that opens the door.
Because he knows the law says Euron's next, and I hate Euron. I'm Aaron. I fucking hate Euron.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
So he put a little bit of manipulation to get to the Kingsmoot. But if he really, really, really wanted to, he could have, instead of trying to drum up the Kingsmoot, could have just attacked Victarion being the king and rallied everybody around it so that Euron had nobody but his one ship, and then they could just kill him when he comes into town.
Exactly. And I think it's because he doesn't actually he thinks I think it's like all in his head. Like, he doesn't think he's trying to do the Kingsmoot to subjugate Euron. That's not what he's telling himself. He's telling himself, we do the Kingsmoot because it's the holy thing to do.
Well,
but his
exactly.
subconscious is choosing the Kingsmoot because he doesn't like the other option.
But he also feels that guy is an unholy man.
Sure.
Well, he's also shoehorning his religious stuff into the situation. Like, oh, it's the storm god is causing these things to go the wrong way for me. Oh, the people are they're being misled by this other entity. Yeah. Like he's very, but it's also because Nelson said he doesn't want Euron. So he's like, oh, something evil has to be at play here, not just like other people or, like Euron.
He assumes that his wants and the Drowned God's wants are the same thing. Like, when Victarion loses, he's like, no, the Storm God's winning. But like, no, dude, your whole point about the Kingsmoot was like the Drowned God gets to choose if that's what the Kingsmoot is. So like, if Euron won, shouldn't that mean that Aaron should all of a sudden support Euron? Because that's what my God tells me.
I don't know if he'll support it, but I think he'll respect it. We'll see soon. I don't remember exactly what happened right after this. In general,
I think he's gonna be pretty distraught. That's my opinion.
I think he's gonna put his big boy pants on, but I don't really remember the Dampere at all.
We'll see.
So next guy up is Eric Ironmaker, who is so big and old that he has to get carried up by his sons too.
Yep, I think grandsons.
Grandsons, I think, yeah.
A great ruin of a man, 20 stones heavy and 90 years old. We learn later it's actually 88. He was clothed in a white bear skin. His own hair was so His own hair was snow white as well, and his huge beard covered him like a blanket from cheeks to thighs. So it was hard to tell where the beard ended and the pelt began. So it's just a big white ball, snowball. And Aaron thinks like, you know what, this guy might not have been a bad choice like 60 years ago, but it's a little late for that. So what's this guy's deal, Kyle?
What is his deal? He's Eric Anvilbreaker. I don't really know anything about him other than he just thinks he's big and he's won some fights.
Yeah, I think he was pretty strong. Like in his day, he carried
he just
some
seems
weight.
like the bar dude that's like, you know, all puffed up, like thinks he's hot shit because he runs his little town kind of thing.
Yeah, they said he has a warhammer that has a steel head the size of a loaf of bread, which like doesn't sound that big, at least for like when you see like pictures in fantasy of like a guy with a warhammer. The warhammer is fucking massive. But like I learned when we played Chivalry, warhammers' heads are like not that much bigger than like a normal hammer, maybe like 2 or 3 times as big as like a
you gotta
normal
be able
hammer.
to swing.
You gotta be able to swing it fast. So this thing is just like a fucking loaf of bread piece of steel, and it basically his claim to fame is, I've smashed more hands on my anvil than I can count. I've smashed more heads than I can count. There might be some thieves and widows that could tell you though, because they're the ones who are the ones paying for it. And he's like, I'm as strong as they come. You want a king with heirs? I've got all these fucking grandsons and shit.
He has like a saying to it. He's like, if old makes you wise, I'm the wisest of you all.
Yep.
If big makes you strong, I'm the strongest of you all.
Exactly.
And he's like, why wouldn't you vote me? And then Asha pops out of nowhere, and she's like, all right, if you stand up, fat guy.
Yeah.
I think it's just even old man kind of thing. He is big, but
Old and fat.
Old and fat both, yeah. But before that, he spells out his gifts, and his gifts are all like swords and daggers and dirks. So it makes me think that he's a blacksmith. I mean, his name is Ironmaker, so you can assume their families are like big into smithing.
Banging on all the anvils.
Exactly, but that's what they're giving out too, which is like a bunch of weapons, which is kind of cool. But yeah, exactly. Asha calls him out.
Yeah, and he tries. Give him credit. His old ass tried to stand.
And Euron's laughing at him.
I mean, yeah, they just no respect for the old guy. It's fucked up.
Yep. The big man hung his head and grew old, all in the blink of an eye. Lol. That's sad, because this dude just shouting about how badass he is, and you just like, he's getting carried down the hill as an old man when he went up like a
he's
badass.
88, right?
Yeah, but
yeah. So,
and then someone calls out to Victarion. All right, Victarion, it's your turn. I think his name's Merlin.
yeah, let's get this
shit over with.
and this bullshit. We know you guys are the ones that are actually going to claim.
Exactly. He's like, no, not yet. And then next we get the Drum, who I think a few people in the last chapter were like, oh, the Drum's going to make a claim. So here he is.
I remember his name. Yeah.
I don't remember Drum from last chapter or anything before.
We definitely talked about him.
Yeah, I think like when Asha and Victarion were talking,
Nothing serious.
Asha says like the Drum's going to make a claim is all we heard. Like, he's
Oh,
going to
okay.
be a candidate.
He's going to be a guy that throws names.
And they might have pointed out his boat,
Yeah.
I think, on the way in.
Something like that.
He had the best captains to date.
Best captains, well, they get named, and he's got a Valyrian steel sword. Pretty badass, called Red Rain.
That's pretty dope.
Cool name for a sword too, Red Rain, Valyrian steel
It
sword.
is, yeah.
So his champions were 2 of his sons who are both good fighters, Dennis Drum and Donald Drum, and Andric the Unsmiling. This is the line that doesn't make any fucking sense to me. Aaron says, it spoke well of Drum that such men would stand for him. 2 of these men are his sons. Like, no shit they're going to stand for their dad. Like, it's not like he has like 3 random great warriors. He has
It is fair.
such a weird comment
Some
to me.
sons, some sons don't like.
But I mean, his sons must be good kids, I guess, kind of what he's saying too.
Yeah, like they're
for them
definitely
to still be, they're
respected,
trustworthy, they're
yeah.
honest. And if they're standing for him, then it still means something.
Yeah, I don't.
But yeah, you're
Felt
right.
weird,
I know.
It probably means something for the younger generation, right? It's like
I just mean like obviously they're not going to stand with Victarion. They're the Drum sons.
I don't know if that's that true.
I guess, especially for Ironborn, who are kind of do whatever.
Especially
they want.
like a second son. Maybe think about a second son who, like, that happens. They want to like get their own glory. There's no way they wouldn't think.
You know
about
what would make a second son life a lot better? Their dad becoming king.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe they have a deal where they can become.
Shut up. Good talk.
No, you're wrong. You're just not letting me finish. A second son has never, let me just swing it back to you. Has a second son ever made a decision to backstab their family to elevate their position?
Yes.
Yeah, shut the fuck up. Man. Good talk. All right, moving on.
Never mind, I'll put it back on Jeff because I know it gets him heated, but I felt like I wanted to a little bit there.
Well, his big thing is hey, we don't need to vote just because they're Krakens, right? Just because his family's been on the chair. It wasn't the Krakens beforehand. They were the lords of this place. Let's go back even further and pick the best guy, which is me. Yeah. And then he goes just on. He just starts long talking.
Pulling a Nelson. Just going off on history that no one gives a fuck about.
Loses everybody so fast.
Listing off names, talking about history no one cares about. Literally, Dale the Dread, Roaring the Reaver. I'm going to do it now. The 100 Sons of Gorman Drum, the Old Father. Hillmore Drum, the Cunning. My notes are wrong, but this last one's actually interesting. It says it's where the family got Red Rain.
He drew Red Rain and told them how Hillmore Drum, the Cunning, had taken the blade from an armored knight with wits and a wooden cudgel.
That's pretty badass. So he tricked him away from it.
What's your typo?
It says Hillmore the Cunning taken.
Had taken.
Oh, gosh.
That's all.
You can't fix that with some context clues? Well, they got bored of him, pretty much booed him off. He pulled out his cool Valyrian sword and was like, well, check out my gifts to you. And then it's just a bunch of pieces of bronze, right? And you're like, you can't buy these people with bronze.
Yep, exactly.
And then this is where Aaron wants to put a little bit of his flair in. He's got a feeling. The drowned god's speaking to him. He loud crash, the winds are picking up, and it's time.
I guess contrary to our point earlier, this is the one time where he's not completely objective.
Oh yeah, he's pretty biased.
So he says, who shall be king over us? And he looks right at Victarion. He says,
wink,
9
wink.
sons were born from the loins of Kellon Greyjoy. One was mightier than all the rest, and he knew no fear. So I don't know if you guys remember this one. This was a quote that he was definitely saying to himself like a bunch in the first chapter, but talking about all the sons. Like he was talking about Balon. He was like, 9 sons were born. Balon was the bravest. 9 sons were born, and I was the weakest. So I don't know if we actually heard Victarion, but I think it's kind of cool. I'm guessing we didn't. So now we're getting the Victarion one.
Okay.
Was mightier than all the rest.
Knew no
fear. Then Victarion's like, all right, let's do it. And he has an absolutely horrible speech. So he comes up. He's got, he asked for a blessing first, which is, I think it's a good look.
A couple Ralphs.
I think it's a good look. I told you, the Ralphs. Ralph the Limper, Red Ralph Stonehouse, and Newt the Barber. But I think him getting blessed is a good look, though, right? Like we're here in the eyes of the God's Guard.
Yeah, you're right, getting the blessing. He was the first one to do that.
Yep.
Victarion was not prepared, though. This was awful.
Yeah, bad speech.
Hey, I'm a pretty good dude. You guys know that. Vote for me. What are you, too cool for school?
You want more of what you already had?
You too cool for pageantry, Victarion? Come on, man.
Well, he does say, like, you know me, I'm not like a sweet talker. Like, I'm a blunt,
I'm gonna be
I'll
bad
speak
at this.
street straight. You're gonna get what you got with Balon with me.
Yeah, straight I don't know. I don't think that's the.
Yeah, well, absolutely.
It's good to have on the team, but not the guy leading the ship. Yeah. I mean, I guess he is good leading a ship. Metaphorically, I'm saying.
That's a great point. Like, yeah, he seems like a great second in command or like right hand man or general,
like,
but not
all right, hey, Victarion, I'll go do that.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, yeah, I'll go do that.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, I'll go do that. Yeah.
But he dumps a lot of golden gems out.
Yep, he does. So the one thing I think is funny here, he's like, Balon's the one that trusts me with everything. He sent me to get his wife when he got married. He sent me to Lannisport to singe the lion's tail, and he sent me to stop Robb. The one I think is interesting here is he sent me to Lannisport to singe the lion's tail.
Stealing Euron's. It was Euron's plan.
He's trying to fix that story.
Yeah, because Asha had told him that what she's heard is all the men are talking about how that was Euron's plan, and Victarion's like, that's fucked up. I literally threw the fucking torches. So he's trying to reclaim the ownership of that deed. I think it's kind of funny, and yeah, some people start chanting. Like
he
pretty
did
good.
have enough people behind him to get some cheers going,
and he's got gold and silver,
he's got some gold. People want to fight for some gold.
Yep.
The thing is, like, honestly, you can just keep taking the bribes and then pick whoever you wanted. So the bribes don't really matter at the end of the day.
Yeah, exactly. Just take it as long as they come and then just put it in your pocket.
Yeah. Show me that. It's like walking around the convention center like, yeah, I'll take your free koozie.
Yeah.
Getting swag.
Here's what you do. If you're a captain who's like not a candidate, you have like one of your crewmates like stand a little bit away from the rest of the crowd with like a big sack. And when they dump chests, you just start chucking stuff to him and he just starts putting it away. You know what I mean?
Just long snapping it through the legs.
There's no way you can hold a ton of stuff in your pockets. So just like start throwing it over the crowd to your buddy.
You're gaming the system now.
Yeah.
So a lot of cheering going on, and then a whistle comes out from the back. I think Asha's kind of like walking up, and then she whistles him quiet, right?
Yeah. And again, I think it's funny because just like Victarion last time, I think I pointed out in the last chapter, I didn't even know it would happen again. But when she first enters, Victarion's like, oh, there was a woman laughing in Carl's maid's ear, or like whispering in Carl the maid's ear. And here, Victarion says the same thing, where for like a paragraph, we don't know it's Asha. I mean,
It's just a woman.
it's a pretty easy guess, but he's like, a woman spoke out next unexpectedly. Yeah. It's like, that's your niece, bro. Like, they definitely know her voice. Like, it's not like they don't know who it is.
So she's walking up, she's making some jabs, and Newt and Ralph Kenning,
Red Ralph Stonehouse.
Stonehouse, they try to stop her, and she's like, I'm gonna make you a eunuch if you don't get out of the way.
I think this is an interesting thing. She whispers in Red Ralph. So one of them grabs, she pulls away from that one, and she whispers in Red Ralph's ear, saying,
Newt grabbed her.
Yeah, and she whispers in Red Ralph, and we don't know what she whispers, but he lets go.
But he just steps out of the way.
Let's speculate.
I have no idea. Maybe it was a threat like that, but I mean, I would assume these guys who are Victarion's, like, who's a badass dude, who are his like second in the commands, aren't gonna be just like taken aback by a threat.
Yeah, maybe it's a bribe,
or it's like, I know you're cheating on your wife.
Yeah,
I don't
maybe it's blackmail.
Some secret.
Yeah, I think it's more blackmail. Not that he's actually cheating on his wife, because I don't think again that's that big of a deal for Ironborn, but
these people
probably more of a blackmail
Salt
thing.
wives and all that. Yeah.
Oh, here's my guess. What if he's like, I know about Victarion's wife. Let me buy, because maybe these guys know as his like close.
But what's the dishonor that you're?
He like killed his wife. He said he killed. We heard it in the last chapter. He says, I killed my wife because if anybody found out, it would be so embarrassing. So he just like killed his wife. My assumption is he killed his wife and just told everyone like, oh, she got the pox or something, right?
Something
So
happened.
you think she whispered like, hey, I'll tell everybody what happened to Victarion's wife. Let me up.
Something like that.
Maybe.
That's
I mean,
his
I
guess.
think it's very
It's not a bad
possible
one.
that Red Ralph doesn't even know about Victarion's wife, and Victarion hasn't even told him. I think that's very possible too.
Yeah.
But yeah, something like
All
that.
right.
That's my
well,
guess.
she pops up. She does give Vic some props after kind of, I forget what the line was. She said like, I forget. He was like, oh, you can't. Well, she gives him some props. Like, he's a really good commander. Like he
No one braver or stronger.
and he can count to 10 really fast.
As good as any man.
As fast as anyone. But if he had to go to 20, he's got to take off his boots.
Yeah, it's great.
It was a great line.
Yeah, a little backhanded. Wasn't that like what's that called? Negging, where you like compliment somebody but then you insult them right afterwards to make sure they're not getting too high and mighty. That was like, I feel like I saw that in like Hitch, or like one of those movies about like where like a womanizer teaches
Hitch. I know Hitch like the back of my hand.
like a womanizer is trying to teach somebody how to like pick up chicks, but they're just giving them like all the worst advice, and they're like, you just got to neg them, like give them a little compliment, but then make sure you bring them back down. Don't let them get too high.
Hitch, but it sounds like
Something like
a
that.
womanizer play.
It sounds like a plot for a movie.
Yeah. I don't know why I brought that up. Where were we at?
So she's basically like, look, Victarion's claim's not even best, right? Like, Euron's the
Yeah,
older brother. But
It's funny that she goes right to Euron though
Yeah,
for not
she-
wanting him. She does kind of pull people off Victarion here. So
yeah, she could influence Euron a little bit.
And one of Euron's men is just like, true.
Yeah.
Like in the crowd. It's like,
Second
preach.
that.
Yeah.
And she's like, but mine's better, which I don't know. She's like, Balon had a couple sons.
Well, so as little as Victarion prepared, I think Asha did prepare. Right. So what she says next is, everyone knows that an uncle can't come before a son. So she doesn't imply that she's a son, but she just says like, he can't come next because there's a son. I almost like half thought she was going to bring up Theon, but I guess they all think Theon's dead. Like, oh, can we even hold this king's mood if we don't know where Theon is, type thing. But like, she then goes to imply that basically I'm the son, and she had to know this was coming because she was ready with all these like comebacks, and I mean she's probably just used to this too.
for sure, she knew what she was getting
Obviously,
into.
she's been trying to play the son, quote unquote, but I just thought that was lame. I also think that trying to pull back the claim. What's the word when it for dropping it down? Like, you're the king, your son then takes over.
Heir.
Succession.
Trying to pull out succession in this setting where we're basically saying
That's
succession doesn't matter. We're into the open democracy, choose your champion, and she's trying to go back to succession. Like, that's like opposite of what we're trying to do here, Asha.
That's true, but you would understand that it's her best point.
I do get that.
She's trying to say still those rules should apply to this decision is what she's trying to say.
She's trying to say like, no, don't forget succession here. Like, she could have just been like, this is why I'm great type of thing. Like, Victarion didn't go, I'm a brother of Balon, you should vote me for that. He's like, you know who I am.
I mean, he kind of did.
No, he said
He said, I'll give you more of Balon.
Yeah,
But you didn't have to be Balon's brother to say that. Anybody could have said, I'll continue Balon's
His other point was Balon trusted me with everything in the past.
But again, you don't have to be Balon's brother to be trusted by
true.
him. So let me finish.
Okay.
Asha could have said how good she's going to be without the succession and then go into her plan. She didn't need to mention succession again because I don't think it's strong enough because none of these guys really respect women.
Sure, I mean, but I think that's why she has to go with succession because she can't just stand up and be like, "I'm going to be better than these men."
But she can because she actually has some merit behind her. It's not like she's been doing nothing for her life. She's been commanding ships. She's got people that follow her. She's recruited people to believe in her merit.
You're not wrong.
I don't think maybe it's not as strong as Euron or Victarion, but it's stronger than the rest of the people that we've heard. Like she could have got in the top, I think, without. I don't know. If she's not a Greyjoy, she's not there. So she needs a little bit of Greyjoy. She needs a Greyjoy more than everybody else. I will admit that. But
yeah.
I don't know if she needed to lay the succession thing down as thick as she did. But let's move forward with her plan. And she had some captains too, right? Carl the Maid, Christopher Botley, Harris Harlaw,
who's the knight. Yep.
Harris Harlaw, Sir Harris.
Whose sword Nightfall, also Valyrian steel, was as famous as Red Rain. Kind of badass. So, yeah, exactly. When she does the son thing, Red Ralph's like, "You're not a son, you're a daughter." And she says, "Daughter," and she slipped a hand beneath her jerkin. "Ooh, what's this? Shall I show you? Some of you have not seen one since they weaned you." Everybody laughed again. "Teats on a king are a terrible thing. Is that the song? Ralph, you have me. I am a woman, though not an old woman like you. Ralph the Limper? Shouldn't that be Ralph the Limp?" Asha drew dirt from between her breasts. "I'm a mother, too, and here's my suckling babe." She held it up. "And here, my champions." And then exactly, like Jeff said, Carl the Maid, Christopher Botley, or Harris Harlaw. Are these great champions, though? Like, Christopher seems like a weird one. Like,
is that the dude who won the Marrier?
He's like the puppy dog Mary boy.
I guess he's just like a high up name.
Like, he might be a good fighter. We don't know too much about him other than he is in love with her. Like, him being in love with her doesn't make him not a great warrior.
You knew his name before this, so I mean, like, he's got some say, or he's got some importance, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, you're trying to read into me knowing things? I know everything.
Well, I'm just saying, like, if we wouldn't have known who he, like, if he was some nobody, but he's a name that we know.
Yeah, we've heard it. That's true. I just think it's weird that, like, I don't know, the relationship between those two doesn't seem like a.
Well, I think he's more there because he has influence of over a group of people.
That's
right?
true. As the Botley,
it's not.
That's a really good point.
It's not really because of anything. It's more so like, how can I get the most people? I need the Harlaws. I need this Botley guy. And then Carl's my guy, so he can stand with me.
It's actually a really good point because last chapter we heard that he's the second son, but his father got drowned by Euron and his older brother got killed with Victarion at Mokalan. So he is the heir to Botley.
The new bot.
Yeah. So, good point.
It's just full of them, if you listen to me.
What's next?
So she goes into like, all right, look, Balon... cool, like you guys, he did all this. All he really did, sum it up, is led us into defeat, right? And Vic is trying to say, I'll lead you the same way. Like, why would you guys continue to want to be led into defeat? Let's change course and let's take a lesson from the young wolf.
Yep. He lost won every battle, but lost the war. Let's be smart here. Let's not just keep smashing our head against the wall.
Yeah, we could take some victory, get the land that we talked about last time, the Sea Dragon Point, right? And Stony Shore.
Yep.
Like we can actually have a place in the kingdom here, and we can have allies and friends, and not be living in fear.
Yeah.
Let's live in peace in better place.
And then she decides to dump out the stupidest gifts.
Well, they're not gifts. I think she's making a point, right? So, and I think she's setting Victarion up.
I know what she's. It's not like loot, right? It's not gold. It's not gems. It's like this is a gift of better.
A future,
a better future, right?
I don't think so at all. I think this is what the North has won us. Like, look at how many people have died.
But it's also what she's trying to sell them too. Like,
no, yeah. I think it's like, here's the land of the Stony Shore. We could have this beautiful, bountiful place. Here's the land of the Deepwood or whatever.
I do agree with you, Nels, that it's like, look, we went to the Stony Shore. This is what we got. We got some shit ass, rocks. We went to Deepwood Mott. Great, we won some fucking pine cones. Great, we went to Winterfell. We got some gold turnips. Like, is this what you guys lost your friends for? Was for us to get rocks, pine cones, and turnips?
Yeah, so I always thought until this read through what you guys thought, but I think I can prove that what Jeff just said is actually what happens here. Because the main thing I'll point is she points to one guy whose son died at Winterfell, and throws him a turnip. He's like, this is what your son's life bought you.
Sure.
It's like, you have more sons. Should we go back and fight in the north again? Like, is that worth it for you?
I do agree. But her second part of her new plan is to keep the stony shore.
I agree. So that's why.
So like, how cool are these smooth rocks? Like, are they doped? Are they doped smooth rocks? Do we love these rocks? Are they great rocks?
Well, I've read this book 3 times before, and I've always thought what you guys just said, that she was basically saying, like, hey, fuck the gold. It's better to just take a little piece of land, take what we can get, and run with it. I always thought that was the point here. It's like stones and wood and turnips is what we need. We need like food and stuff. But on this reading a little closer, I don't think at all. I think she's like, look at this bullshit. This is what all of what we've done so far has won us.
I think you're right, Nelson. After
skimming
it, yeah, rereading it and reading it with that kind of insight into it, because she's, like you said, your son died for this shit. If you trade your lives for turnips, like, so if you keep fighting this war, keep staying in the north, then vote for my uncle.
Yeah. Exactly.
So
she definitely doesn't want the whole north. I still think I think she's crazy for picking the Stony Shore and Sea Dragon Point when there's Northland much closer.
The other thing is, there, like, even if she becomes like queen, it's not that, like, her plan isn't a given. All she has is a captive who's basically said, like, oh, I can hook you up with a meeting with the Lord, and she just thinks that meeting with the Lord she can turn into Sea Dragon Point and the Stony Shore. But like, it's all speculation. All she's done is treated one of her captives kind of nicely and got some like promises from her, right? So we're a long way from Asha's dream becoming reality anyway. But yes, I think in general, to like, as readers, we like the plan. Like, I think Asha's plan makes sense. I mean, Euron's plan seems kind of badass too. It's like, all right, let's go. But let's see where this takes us.
Does it?
It's like, let's see where this takes us. It'll be interesting at least. But yeah. So did we miss anything?
I don't think so. Peace and victory. And
Roderick shouts out for her first, and then Baelor Blacktide. And again,
Roderick the Reader.
Let's
say just because there's been other Rodericks, not to confuse them.
Yep. And Baelor Blacktide, again, this is the guy who was very against the war.
Who wanted peace. Aeron, pretty shocked so many people cheered for her.
Yep.
And then Ralph the Limper is the one that kind of screamed out, like, fuck your peace, basically. Like, that's not our way. Let's go kill people, which is a Victarion dude.
Yep.
Right.
And then Red Ralph Stonehouse is also starts chanting for Victarion. And then this is where it gets kind of mixed. Well, the crowd gets mixed. There's a big uproar between Asha and Victarion first. Right. And then yes. How many?
3.
Was that it?
3, yeah.
What does 3 horn blasts mean?
Others?
White Walkers. Is Euron a White Walker? I don't think so, but I think it's a weird symbolism thing.
The Horn of Hell.
Terrible sound.
So the horn's cool, right? So it says, bright and baneful was his voice, a shivering hot scream that made a man's bones seem to thrum within him. The cry lingered in the damp air. All eyes turned towards the sound. It was one of Euron's mongrels winding the call, a monstrous man with a shaved head. Rings of gold and jade and jet glistened on his arms. And on his broad chest was tattooed some bird of prey, talons dripping in blood. The horny blue was shiny black and twisted, and taller than a man as he held it with both hands. It was bound about with bands of red gold and dark steel, incised with ancient Valyrian glyphs that seemed to glow readily as the sound swelled. So what I have is the sound. This is cool. It seemed to burn his ears, covered it, and prayed that the waves would come up and smash the horn to silence. And he wanted to scream, but he knew no one would hear it.
The cheeks of the tattooed man were so puffed out they looked about to burst, and the muscles in his chest twitched in a way that made it seem as if the bird were about to rip free of his flesh and take wing. And now the glyphs were burning brightly, every line and letter shimmering with white fire. On and on and on the sound went, echoing amongst the howling hills behind them and across the waters of Naga's cradle to ring against the mountains of Great Wick, on and on and on until it filled the whole wet world. And when it seemed the sound would never end, it did. The hornblower's breath failed at last. He staggered and almost fell. The priest saw Orkwood of Orkmont catch him by one arm to hold him up, whilst left-hand Lucas Codd took the twisted black horn from his hands. A thin wisp of smoke was rising from the horn, and the priest saw blood and blisters upon the lips of the man who'd sounded it. The bird on his chest was bleeding too.
Yep. Kyle, thoughts? Jeff, thoughts?
Sounds like a sweet tattoo.
The bleeding bird.
Well, not bleeding.
Is it like a 4D tattoo or a 3D tattoo? Is this thing actually like? It is at the end for sure.
At the beginning, I do think they say it's a bird with talons dripping blood, but at the end, the whole thing is actually bleeding.
Yeah, it's actually bleeding. Pretty wild. I mean, we talked off screen, Nelson, about this, so I feel like Kyle's reaction's probably better. Anything on the horn, Kyle? Obviously, like the effect of this guy.
Well, he like claims it can hold dragons, right? Or you mean just like about the fact that it did fuck this dude up?
Yeah, just about like this dude kind of fucking smokes coming out of it at the end. This guy's bleeding.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's some credence to the claims.
So yeah, you were talking about the dragons. I think that is important to factor in with this, right? Like he claims that you can bind dragons to your will. I think he says because Asha jokes that binding goats would be more useful because there are no dragons, and we'll get into that. But yeah, like we just had a quick technical difficulty. Jeff lost connection, but we got him back in. No biggie. But I don't remember at all what I was saying. So
all right,
I hope I didn't have a good point because we're moving on.
You didn't.
Euron made his climb up. The one thing I noted, I don't know if it means anything, the seagulls going nuts on the climb up.
I think it's very interesting because we just sounded a crazy badass war horn that Euron had to cover his ears for, and there's just a seagull that's just chilling through it. Like this thing's been squawking all chapter. I didn't notice. Like I wrote the seagull was squawking early in the chapter. Didn't even write it in my notes because who the fuck cares? But then when it didn't fucking leave, when there was a crazy ass war horn, I was like, okay, what the fuck's up with this seagull? But
well, it went crazier though.
It was like blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's like what?
Yeah, it was like fuck this thing. Yeah, it seemed anti-Euron to me.
Like a seagull wouldn't chill through that, right? Like a honk a horn.
Why not? It might think Dampere had some fries or something or a funnel cake.
That's true. Maybe he did. He does have seaweed in his woven in his hair.
All right, Euron basically gives his story, which I've sailed the most, I've killed the most, I've done the most. Yeah. I'm the best.
Shy by the shadow. Well, go back.
Yeah, get out of here. Go back to your cool Shadowland.
He's like, Victarion wants to claim the North. Asha wants peace and pine cones. Asha wants victory. Victarion wants a kingdom. I can give you both. Crow's Eye, you call me. Well, who has a keener eye than the crow? After every battle, the crows come in their hundreds and the thousands to feast upon the fallen. A crow can espy death from afar, and I say that all of Westeros is dying. Those who follow me will feast until the end of their days. We are Ironborn, and once we were conquerors. Our writ ran everywhere the sound of the waves was heard. My brother would have you be content with the cold and dismal north, my niece with even less. But I shall give you Lannisport, Highgarden, the Arbor, Old Town, the Riverlands and the Reach, the Kingswood and the Rainwood, Dorne and the Marches, the Mountain of the Moons and the Vale of Arryn, Tarth and the Stepstones. I say we take it all. I say we take Westeros.
He glanced at the priest.
All for the greater glory of the Drowned God, to be sure.
For half a heartbeat, Aaron's like, yo, this dude's got it, man. He's got the Drowned God in him.
Aaron wanted to vote for a second.
It's like, yo.
This is the wackest speech ever, man. I how do you fall for this shit? He's like promising way too much. This is just bullshit.
And that's what they say, which is kind of crazy because Aaron liked it before he even told him how he was going to do it.
Well, hold on. This might be bullshit. Well, again, he's got a little bit of pageantry, right? It doesn't matter. Like, if you don't, sometimes it doesn't matter what you're saying. It matters how you say it to get the juices, get the goosebumps going. And he's got that, right? Maybe not with the flair Nelson saying it, but he's got it, right? So the people are buying in. And then he's about to drop the big hammer of it all. But before that, Dampere's like, oh, shit. Not only, like, am I about to do this, but, like, I dreamed this. I dreamed us taking everything.
Yeah. When I first saw the red comet, which is, we haven't heard about that thing in a while, but everyone, it's kind of cool because we heard what everyone's opinion of the red comet was. Aaron wasn't a POV chapter, so we don't know what his opinion was, but now we do. When he saw the red comet, he's like, this is ours. This means we get to take everything over. And apparently nobody else was really on the same team. Maybe Balon was kind of, right? We don't know where his end plan was, but it started with the North. But yeah, like he's like, that's kind of why he's on the side.
Yeah. So maybe you're skeptical to this point, but then you're like, yeah, well, guess what? I got this horn, and this horn brings motherfucking dragons to our side.
Well, yeah, we mentioned this earlier, but this is funny too. When Asha's like, how are we going to do it when we can't even hold the North? And he's like, do you not know about Aegon the Conqueror? Like, did Balon not teach you anything? And he's like, I know, but he had dragons. We don't have dragons. And he's like, that horn I showed you, it can bind dragons to my will. And she's like, it'd be better to bind goats to your will. There are no fucking dragons. Like, that's a great
Yeah,
line.
well, exactly. Like, but he's like, oh, there are. I know where to get them, which is like super far away. So,
I think one of the most unbelievable things is like he has no evidence of this, and they just seem to all believe him.
well, yeah.
Like, we know this is true.
Well, that's kind of what I'm trying to say. Well, Jeff's like, hey, you gave a great speech, but it's like his speech is founded in bullshit. It's all this like promise of glory and greatness. It's just what the people want to hear with no evidence and nothing to back it up. And
it sounds like every 4 years, and
But so that's true. But so is Asha and Victorion.
well, that's what I'm saying. Is like to fall for it is so ridiculous.
Hang on, Asha and Victorion's plans are just as crazy. Like I just explained a second ago, Asha's all she has is the word of a current captive. She hasn't talked to anybody who has power, and she thinks she can get all this stuff. We have no fucking clue. Victorion, do we think he could actually take the North? I don't. So, like, yes, Victorion and Asha are promising shit just as crazy. So, again, like the election cycle, I don't like either side. They all promise bullshit. But let's go with who we believe the most. The guy who just blew a horn and caused the guy blowing its chest to start bleeding and it was smoking afterwards, or the girl who dumped a chest of pine cones in front of us. You know what I mean? Like, let's look at this objectively. Like, we look at this through the lens of the characters we like. Objectively, no shit, we pick Euron.
I don't know, man. I think some of these are more realistic ideas and less far-fetched than the guy that's like, we're just fucking taking everything and we're using this stuff that didn't happen for however long, and I have no proof of any of this happening. Whereas she's like, look, we're going to take this tiny little piece of land for ourselves that kind of nobody really wants anyway, but it's more than what we have and nobody wants what we have. So like that whole thing, or Victorion, who's like, we can continue doing the same thing that we're already doing. So like that is something that they are already doing. So I don't think that's nearly far-fetched.
I think these people are willing to hop on a ship right now because this horn just showed up and did some crazy ass light show and then burned a man's chest to pieces. That they're like, oh fuck, let's go hop on a ship, let him blow this horn near a dragon, and let's see if we can actually do what he fucking said. If they end up showing up and the dragon then, like, I don't know, maybe blows them up, with fire, well, then they're fucked anyway. But, like, I don't know, doing the same thing, insanity. Fighting for this piece of land that nobody has ever really claimed that they wanted, stupid. And then, like, oh shit, we can actually be the best. Let's go burn everything down with a dragon. Sounds like their way.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's as one-sided as Jeff and I's arguments are making it sound. I think it's more even than that, but also I think he has the just going last helps. Like, that's a big part too. Is like, we went last, and I don't think we ever get like a good description of what he dumps. Did I miss it? Of like the gifts he gives? It just seems like gold. Like someone mentioned,
it's gold and gems. Like it's
good. I mean, you can assume he has good shit, right? Because he's been all over the place if he's telling the truth. But so
it's definitely said what he dropped.
I saw this.
No, it doesn't. But it says Hotho is like talking or something, but he's filling his hands with gold.
Yeah, as soon as they dump the chest, that's when everybody else that wasn't already on Euron's side starts joining in. I have in my notes that the mutes and mongrels upended the chest, and then Hotho, Harlaw, Lord Gerald, Goodbrother, and Eric Ironmaker, who was fucking a candidate, all start shouting Euron's name.
Yeah. Well, he gets all the cheers and the treasure's dumped, and then Aaron looked for his God's words, but silence.
Read that quote. Even a priest may doubt. Start there, Jeff.
Even a priest may doubt. Even a prophet may know terror. Aaron Dampere reached within himself for his God and discovered only silence. As 1,000 voices shouted out his brother's name, all he could hear was the scream of a rusted iron hinge.
Maybe it's actually foreshadowing, and it's him, like part of his dream that he had with the taking of everything. He's getting locked up or something in his whatever he saw when he saw the comment. We didn't really get that whole prophecy, so
yep. Cool.
That's
another option.
Solid prediction.
So what do we think, Kyle? What's next for these guys?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think Jeff was very willing to overlook a lot of people's very negative opinions of Euron being a crazy dude to just like be like, hop on a boat with him and let's go east. But
well, I mean, we don't actually know. I don't even know what the whole plan is. Like, does one ship go? Do they all have to go? I mean, what if you could just wait here till he gets back with the dragon and then like carry on till I get back with the dragon? Like, we don't know the exact plan.
The other thing is, do we know how much like the population really hated Euron? Like, I think it's a fair point what you're saying, Kyle. That maybe I'm not taking that. Maybe me too. I'm not taking that much into account. But we've seen it through Asha, Victarion, and Aeron, who we know all do not like Euron. Asha has talked to Roderick, and he seems to also be kind of very, very anti-Euron. So that's the one thing that's making me think that you're probably right, and there's probably some general we don't like Euron just in the Ironborn. But like some of them just went to his side to. They knew there was going to be good things that happen. So, like, he had some support.
A lot of them fear him too. Like, there's enough fear there. I don't know if it's all love. There's probably some fear. Again, maybe his plan at the end of the day is, hey, I'm going to go get us a dragon. You chill here till I get that, and then we'll go do our thing. So, like, if you're,
I think it's just as crazy as that first dude from out west. What were you going to say, though? Continue. I'm sorry. I thought
it
you were
might be, yeah. But at least he's not asking you to move right now. He's not asking you to. Again, I don't know. Maybe he is. Maybe he's saying, let's take the whole Iron Fleet to go get a dragon. I don't. Nelson can tell me in the spoiler section how far off base I am, but.
Well, I was gonna say, I think something you said too also matters more than I wish it would. But is the pageantry, right? Like he
got him fired up.
Euron talked way more romantically than the first guy did. So even I kind of agree with you, Kyle, that they're similar. They're not that far off from each other. They're both like very far fetched.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is it's this ridiculous thing that everybody's just buying into just because he said it in this flamboyant way.
The horn. Did you forget the like page we read about the horn? Like he said it, and some crazy shit just happened.
And if it works,
the horn didn't do that much crazy though. Let's be real.
It was smoky and his lips were blistered. The thing is, his lips could have been blistered before. They could have just like made him get sunburned before to like play this off.
Here's the thing. I think it's a new plan, right? I don't know if the Balon way is really what these people really wanted. Let's just keep banging our head against the door of trying to, win our freedom, I guess, or be the kings of whatever Balon really wanted. The North and the Iron Islands. Is that what Balon wanted?
I think he wanted.
It seems like they were all very pro Balon.
I don't think they didn't like Balon, but they've also failed for the last reign.
Yeah, and did Balon even want the North, or did he want everything? Like, I don't know if that was clear. Like, he wanted to start with the North.
Yeah, he wanted to be king. Yeah,
I don't think anybody cared for Ash's plan because it's not. I think Kyle, you think about this as like sane people, right? And like just people that have. Again,
so when I'm having this argument, I'm having my argument from my point of view. That's 100% correct, Jeff.
Sure. I'm thinking as an Ironborn, and they're like, let's go fucking burn everything down.
Well, if you're arguing from that perspective,
I don't argue from my perspective because if I'm in Dorne, I'm thinking.
Well, this is our opinions, is what I thought. Like there's a podcast of our opinions.
It's my opinion on what the Ironborn should do, not or what they.
Well, it's coming out more of it. Sounds like it's your opinion. I'm sorry. That's the way I'm reading it. Not on purpose.
I don't care about this at all. They could go fucking sit on a cockle for all I care.
No. Kyle's saying if you yourself were an Ironborn today and knowing everything we already know about reading the books, and you were like a random Harlaw, who would you vote for? And I think I probably would vote for Asha, even though I don't think it's that much more likely than Euron's. I know she knows nothing. She hasn't talked to anybody important except she's talked to a fucking captive.
I think Asha's plan is stupid unless you really care about the peace part.
My point is, I don't even think her plan is plausible. I don't think she could do it. She's talked to a fucking captive who has no authority to give away what they're trying to give away anyway. I mean, Roose Bolton, who would not be down for this. Like, he would be like, no, fuck you.
What if they were just like, hey, what if someone said, hey, let's just live our lives as the Ironborn do. We'll live on our ships. We'll go pirate around and then come home every night and be with your wife. Like, why is that nobody's plan? Let's just chill. Well, let's just chill here and fish and steal.
And the other thing is, in the King's Moot, and we definitely didn't talk about it in the podcast. I don't even know how much of the whole like we'll get Sea Dragon's Point in the Stony Shore. She even mentions. She pretty much says like, She basically says like, for the most part, I'm gonna get us out of the war. We're just gonna stop doing what we're doing and go back to where we were 2 years ago. It's kind of how I see Asha's real campaign strategy. I don't even think she's really talking about the North.
No, she said they would have the North.
She brought it up, and she said we'll be allies with the North. Which once you start allying yourself, all right, now the North gets in a war. Guess who's going to war? You're now the North Navy, right? So like, it's only peace for however long. It's not everlasting peace.
But I mean, they'd be fighting for their own future as well at that point.
It's the same as if you go get a dragon. You can still fight for that future. It's just a different future.
So I'll say, if I was an Ironborn, knowing what I know, I think I would vote for Asha just because it would end the fighting. It's better than Victarion, and I don't want whatever Euron's bringing us into. However, as a reader, I like Euron's because it's definitely going to be more interesting.
Again, is this your personal opinion? If you were on a ship,
Yes, if I was an Ironborn who lived in the Iron Islands, who could go,
but it doesn't sound like these people are tired of fighting. We heard one person that's tired of fighting.
I know, Jeff, I'm with you. The entire chapter, I was arguing for what the Ironborn think in Ironborn culture. Kyle is saying, if I was in my the shoes I'm in right now, but at this Kingsman, who would I vote for? So shift your perspective for a second. I agree. It doesn't matter. What matters is what you're talking about. But let's shift for a second. Who would you vote for?
The old fat man.
See, I might actually vote for one of those guys too. I might vote for the first guy. Like, let's fucking.
If the drum guy didn't give me a history lesson, probably the drum guy. I don't know. This is the election. Maybe they need to campaign more because I don't have faith in either of these guys. Maybe that's why I'm not a. It's just not. I don't know. None of them sang to me. I don't give a fuck about any of them. Point. So I'm saying from
you just
based off
vote.
of
you wouldn't even be here.
Who the general population is of the Ironborns, I'm not shocked at all that this cool ass horn goes out and the promise of the coolest sea voyage ever with the dragon flying over your head. I'm not surprised that they picked up their fucking cockles and started banging them around.
Yes. Again, so now switching back to Jeff, the perspective of what actually matters. What do the Ironborn think? I 100% agree with you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Kyle, do you see what we're talking about?
Well, I mean, they picked him. I don't know why this is even an argument. Like, we know it happened.
Because I think you're like shocked that they did it.
Yeah. You seem shocked.
I'm not shocked that they did it. I was shocked that it sounded like the way Jeff was presenting it was. You're like, yeah, of course, Euron was the right choice here.
I think
in the context, yeah. I mean, I think if Jeff was setting polls beforehand and he knew everyone's campaign strategy, I would set the odds on Euron too.
If you're promising me a way to get a dragon, and I believe you based off of this cool ass presentation, you're probably getting my vote.
Yeah, so like say neither of you had read the chapter, and at the end of the last chapter, I told you what Euron, Asha, and Victarion. I mean, you already knew what Asha and Victarion were going to campaign on. But what if I told you it would have been a huge spoiler? But I say like, hey, Euron's going to tell them all that he's going to take them east and get dragons and take over Westeros. You don't think that even without knowing the current knowledge of the chapter, you would have think that sounds more appealing than. You know what I'm saying, Kyle?
I think it's wild. I think that's wild speculation to these people that have no reason to believe that there's dragons. Like I don't know. I think
that's a great point. I pointed that out. That he has
I don't understand
evidence.
Why they're like all so on board with this.
No evidence of dragons.
There's no physical proof of actual dragons. Again, if they all had to get on the ship and actually witness it, maybe they're like, nah, fuck that. I'm not going on that travel. If it's just like, hey, you go take this horn, blow it when you see the dragons, and then come back, they're probably like, okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, or you're
go
just
shoot
like,
your shot.
Hey, name me king, and I'll be back in 10 years with some dragons. Trust me.
Go shoot your shot.
Something like that. Then yeah, why not? You know what I mean? But yeah, okay. I think everybody knows where we're standing. Anything else to say before we call us when we move on to the spoiler section?
Nope.
All right. We'll see Kyle in the next one for
Brienne.
3. 4. Pretty sure it's 4.
Brienne better step it up. I gotta say that.
What's up with Brienne?
She's in the bar.
Yeah, she met
Nimble Dick.
Yep.
Oh, that's
We're
right.
off to find a fool.
Yeah. He fooled the fools.
Yep. We'll see Kyle in the next one for Brand 4. We'll see the rest of you guys in the spoiler section. Bye, Kyle.
Bye. Later, nerds.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert!
Bye, Kyle.
Bye, Kyle.
See you on the next one for Brienne 4.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
Now, on to the spoiler section.
Can I just do a quick minute on Kyle's opinion of every chapter is based off of Kyle in 2025?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I feel like I clarified that, and I agree with you that that's not what matters. But I think it's not
like even on like gender roles and like how the world works in this book. Like I feel like he's never pulled himself out of current 2025 and thrown himself into the Westeros culture of it.
I agree. But I think part of that's because if you do, then you're subjecting yourself for cancellation a little bit, right? Just because because like Kyle said, it can sound like you're agreeing with that point, even though like I think people know that our listeners know we're not agreeing with like some of the shit Euron's doing. But if I was an Ironborn, I'm fucking 100% voting for Euron in this.
Yeah. All right. What are your hot takes, Nels? I don't really have.
I didn't have much. The blue lips were mentioned Again, I think it's a good idea to not mention it with Kyle because if you point it out, it becomes pretty obvious. I think. Like, I don't know if he would remember because it's been a while since we saw Warlock, but I think it's
just give me the quick rundown. I know Asha bails. We talked about that last time. Asha bails after
she goes back to Deepwood.
Victarion,
he's loyal,
and he's the one that gets sent east
to go get Dany.
Did he take his part of the Iron Fleet? Did he, like, that's kind of I didn't.
And I think by the end, where we are at the end of the books, he has this idea. Like, Euron has sent him to get Dany, blow the horn, claim the dragons, and come back and give it all to him because he's king. And Victarion's like, fuck it. I'm going to have somebody else blow the horn for me. I'm going to take the dragons, and I'm going to marry Dany. Because I'm pretty sure where Victarion's head is at.
Like, whose will? Like, did Euron need to, like, write his name on the horn to make sure it's his will and not, like you just said, it could be Victarion's will. Like, who's...
So the guy who blew this horn, I think he ends up dying. So Victarion's like, I can't blow this fucking horn. Like, Euron wants me to fucking blow. I can't blow this horn, or I'll die. But in what you're saying is a valid point. Fans, I don't think we know, and I think fans speculate that. Is that like you have to like whisper a spell into the horn, and then you're the one who gets the dragon like the next time?
Right.
And
do you
like,
need to rub the magic side of it, and then it's like then the next blow is yours, type of thing?
And like, do we really think that you can like what does bind a dragon to your will mean? Like, bind it as much as Drogon is bound to Dany. Dany can't control Drogon for fuck all. Like, so
I mean, there is the part of we know that they bond as a dragon rider
for sure. There's something there, but it's not like
right
whistle
and they come exactly. They come ready.
It's like and we saw that in House of the Dragon, right? Like,
yeah. Well, I don't know if that's completely true. At least Vhagar.
Yeah,
got old enough to the point where he was like, fuck it, I'm going to go burn this. I'm going to go bite this little fucking dragon, and I'm just going to start burning shit down. But, like, it did seem like, I don't remember the girls, Bela and
Rhaenys when she's, like, has melees. Like, the second fight, everyone pretty much is in control. Yeah, you're fair. You're right. Like, Rook's Rest in season 2.
We only see Bela ride once. Even, like, the little Arax, before he gets chomped up.
Yeah.
Like, he was solidly, like, listening.
Yeah, listening. Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe the older one, like maybe it's just like an alpha male type of thing. Like Drogon,
the big dog,
doesn't want to listen because he's big dog, and Vhagar obviously was big dog.
Yep. So yeah, I really don't have that many. Blue Lips. The other
Damphair chills.
I think he decides to start preaching against Euron. And I think some of the stuff I've said about I'm just realizing this. I think some of the stuff I said about the Iron Hinge, we really don't know the answer to by the end of Dance of Dragons. What I told you about like him raping Aeron and Yuri is from the Winds of Winter chapter.
Oh shit!
I think
you spoiled that. You spoiled me on that too.
I definitely want to have you read the Winds of Winter chapters, but here's the problem with that: is like if you read the Winds of Winter chapter right now, it wouldn't make any fucking sense because you don't remember between now and the end of the books, right? So it'd just be like skipping way far ahead.
I would get sparked, but
and I mean in the Winds of the Winter chapter, at
like
least
when I read these, it's not like I'm reading it for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, but no, even me. Like we're getting to the point where you're starting to ask me questions that's getting to like the very end of the story, and I'm like, where is that at? Like, where exactly did that end? So even some of it I'm fuzzy on. So, but yeah, so the one thing I had was the seagull doesn't get scared away by the horn. I think that is kind of weird, and I think like the only thing I can think is either one of these. What are they? What's the fucking guy's name? The guy who can the Ironborn guy that they're saying can maybe skin change people. Farwind. Maybe Farwind is like skin changing this thing because we know skin changes like birds.
Into the seagull?
Or it's Blood Raven. Just because obviously if it's not someone nearby, it's definitely Blood Raven.
I definitely thought this is some like old gaudy type shit. Or is this some?
Oh, that's fair. Just old god stuff.
Is this some drowned gaudy type shit?
Drowned god stuff.
Do these people actually like have some? Because I would say the drowned god, storm god, if you want to believe that section, has more of an old god feel. And again, like the old gods basically feel like nature, right?
Yeah.
So drowned god, storm god, it's all kind of maybe these are the same gods of a different color.
It's like the Buddhist parable about the blind men and the elephant. You know that one? You have like 10 different blind men all touching an elephant. One's touching the tail, one's touching the ear, one's touching the trunk, one's touching the leg, one's touching the belly, and they all are claiming it's something different, right?
Sure.
But they're all touching the same thing.
Or even like the Greeks called him Zeus and the Romans called him Jupiter or whatever, you know, like
Well,
I don't think those are right, but
I think that's just this. I think that's the same religion just transitioning. I think they just renamed them after the planets, didn't they?
oh, maybe
I thought that's what that was, but I
I don't know if they renamed them or if they were just that similar, but
Yeah,
maybe
I don't know. Yeah, so that was all I had. But I think it's a good point. Maybe more Drown God than Old God. I was just assuming Bloodraven because obviously, but
I don't want to get into the I'd rather it not be the gods because we already have Bloodraven, we already have the Maesters.
George has said we'll never know if there are gods or if it's just like someone
Right,
with
more
magic
so the
or
merchant.
whatever.
I like the merchants more of the gods. Is that the word?
Like the prophets
Like
or whatever.
Prophets, yeah. Bloodraven,
Melisandre.
Melisandre. You got
Aaron, maybe.
the Maesters, maybe Aaron. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. Yep. Did you have any points? I only have one more, and it's. I hope you like it. It's kind of an original one by me.
No, you don't have original thoughts. I'll just say this: there being another Valyrian sword out here is cool.
Related to my thought, there's two. We hear Red Rain. That's the one we hear of, and the other one is
Nightfall, which is before dawn.
That's exactly my point. It's the opposite of dawn. So what if Euron ends up with Nightfall, and Jon ends up with dawn, and like there is a cool epic. And this feels so not George because George is always like subvert expectations, right? Like the hero doesn't get to fight the big baddie in a sword fight. But yeah, that'd be badass. Is if Euron ends up with a Valyrian sword called Nightfall and Jon has Dawn, and they end up like having a sword fight.
Was Nightfall Valyrian steel or just a cool sword? Just
it is Valyrian steel. They didn't mention it in this chapter. It says it's as famous as Red Rain. So it's kind of implied. It's not actually, but it is Valyrian steel.
We're taking it as Valyrian steel.
How
about
we find out later it is.
We had a dawn in this chapter, right? Aaron's waking up or like watching people wake up through dawn, but there's no mention of the actual word during that. Like usually when it happens, it's like dawn came.
Yeah.
But he nothing.
Yeah, exactly. I was noting that too because he was like the first light was breaking and the color came back to the banners as the morning light came, and I was like, he's using so many terms that are very close to dawn but not dawn. So yeah, I was noticing that too. Yeah, that was the last one I had.
Cool. Let's wrap it up.
All right, we'll see the rest of you guys in the next one for Brienne 4. It's a long one.
Oh no.
We'll see you guys in that one. Brienne 4 on the way to the Whispers.